The following is a TPC Network podcast.
Hey, Pepin.
Yo, yo, yo.
Coming into the ring, weighing in at 185 pounds, the man, the myth, the legend, Nathan Pepin.
Yeah. Woo.
Da-na, da-na. You suck. You suck.
This is kind of hurtful, Steve.
Yeah, well, that's the wonderful world of professional wrestling.
I think we need to talk.
Welcome back. So glad you guys could join us. I am here once again with Nathan Pepin. How's it going, Nate?
Doing well, doing well. Also, was that Kurt Angle's theme song?
It was indeed the infamous Kurt Angle.
He is so amazing. I love him. You know, he won the Olympics, medal, gold, with a broken neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was the first American to ever win gold in wrestling.
Really?
I don't know, I think so.
Oh, okay. Let's go with it.
I think he competed at the same time as Mark Henry, when Mark Henry did the lifting. And Mark Henry was injured as well, and still took bronze.
Mark Henry was a beast. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my God. Like, he could have done far more than he actually did if he put in more time.
He decided to quit wrestling. I mean, to quit powerlifting because he said that the game was too much into steroids, and he was not doing any steroids and was out competing most people who were doing steroids, but he said it just wasn't a level playing field.
Yeah. He was doing, actually he did both powerlifting and Olympic lifting. Mm-hmm. And Olympic lifting is very, very technical. Like, it's about lifting the most amount of weight in that sport, but it's not like powerlifting where it's all about like strength and, you know, technique is important. But in Olympic weightlifting, it's maybe like 50 or more like percent with technique. It's mostly technique.
And at the same time, so we're talking about some amazing actual Olympic level athletes who ended up becoming professional wrestlers in the WWE. And I think it's just fascinating that you can come from all these different walks of life and come together, and you can use these types of things in your persona. Like Kurt Angle called himself the only true athlete in the WWE. And he played that heel persona so well while being like a likable heel that you love to hate him.
What I find so amazing about Kurt Angle as well is he really sold anybody he was wrestling. So for those who aren't aware, like, wrestling is fake.
What?
Wrestling is fake.
So the Olympics are fixed?
Okay, professional wrestling is fake.
Oh, yeah, well, duh.
And so when you're wrestling somebody, like, the whole it's like tango, right? It's like dancing. So you gotta sell that. You know, you're gonna sell your portion of it. So you're trying to punch them, make it look real, and the same thing. When you get punched, you need to make it look real. The biggest problem they have with people is that they, get punched and stuff, and they just act like it's nothing. Like, it's like, you can't hurt me, which it doesn't sell anything. What Kurt Angle was really good at is, making things look real on his end, when he punched people and kind of beat them up. But then when he would wrestle people, he'd make them look really good.
I don't think that's what Kurt Angle was best at. A couple of things here. First off, sometimes it's okay to do a no-sell. No. When you're doing something anyway, it's like some tiny guy, like say Rey Mysterio going into the Big Show, and he kicks him in the shin. Like, Big Show's not going to sell that like he's hurt. He's going to pretend it didn't happen. Undertaker, his whole persona is built around no selling things. But then at other times, he needs to be able to be vulnerable and be able to sell things. So not selling isn't always a bad thing. But what Kurt Angle was really, really well known for is something that Mr. Perfect and Chris Benoit were known for, Dean Malenko. They were known for being technical wrestlers. So every move they do, and Kurt Angle is an amazing example of this, looks really good. It's exactly like how you would see it if you were to draw it out in a textbook. They are so good at that. I know if you look at his moonsault, Kurt Angle's moonsault is amazing. It's so good when he stands up on the top rope facing outside of the ring and jumps and does a backflip and lands with his stomach on the opponent.
Mm-hmm. For me, watching Kurt Angle, I think the way he sold stuff was good. But I just remember so many matches where he was facing off against people who really weren't that great. Shane McMahon, for instance. He fought Shane McMahon at, I think it was WrestleMania or something. And he made Shane McMahon look like a god. Shane McMahon's not that great of a wrestler. I mean, he's not, like, terrible, but, like, their match was the most enjoyable match of that night. And then he'd be wrestling other people, and he'd make the other people look really good. Of course, it's the other people as well, making themselves look good. But he was able to cooperate with people in a way to put on a really good show, which I don't disagree with your point either.
I know Shane McMahon gave it everything he had. He left the ring exhausted every single time. And that's another great mark of a great wrestler who maybe they don't have the star power or the charisma or anything like that, which Shane kind of did have to a degree. He was a McMahon, so it kind of came with the territory. But you're right. He wasn't a great wrestler as great wrestlers go, but he was great at what he did. He wasn't afraid to take risks, to really put his body on the line in a way that a lot of other wrestlers wouldn't. There was that time he climbed way, way up almost to the scaffolding and jumped off. And obviously it was a very padded area, but that's still really a dangerous thing. Even if you land on a bunch of pads on your neck, you can die.
Yeah. The McMahons are pretty crazy in general. I mean, it's so weird they put them in such risk, and they make themselves look like idiots. And these people are the real controllers of the company. Vince McMahon is not like a figurehead. It's not like Paul Heyman. He's the GM of Raw or whatever. Was that the thing?
Something. He's done things like that.
But he's actually the real is he a president or what is he? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the real president of the company, and he had Rikishi stink face him. And for those who aren't aware, Rikishi is this huge Samoan dude. He wears pretty much like a thong, and his finisher move is he keeps them in the corner like a turnbuckle or whatever.
Yeah,
and they're just kind of laying there. And he'll just come over and do the stink face, and he just pretty much twerks in your face, and it puts it right in there. He did that to the president of the company, and it's okay. To put it more in context, the president of the company said, "Hey, yeah, let's do this. I want this guy's ass in my face because it'll be great entertainment."
Absolutely. He also did the shaved head matches against Donald Trump, and so they each picked a person to wrestle for them, and whoever won the wrestling match, whoever was representing that person, the other one got their head shaved. That was a really convoluted way to say that. But basically, the person that Vince McMahon picked lost, so he had to have his head shaved live on TV.
Really?
And he actually, he did it.
Okay. I haven't kept up with wrestling.
No, that was a long time. That was a while ago.
Oh man, that's pretty great.
Yeah. Who were some of your favorite wrestlers and why?
The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of obvious. The Rock, I don't think The Rock was the best wrestler out there. He did well though. He was entertaining, but it's more his charisma, which is why I think he's doing so well today in movies and the whole professional. He's the highest paid actor right now of all time. Used to be Will Smith.
So I guess when you're saying a good wrestler, I need a better definition, because professional wrestling, there's so many different aspects to it that can make you a great wrestler. Mm-hmm. But like you're saying, somebody like Kurt Angle was a very different style wrestler than The Rock or than The Undertaker.
Right. So the way I would put it is entertaining to watch. You're kind of on your toes and kind of wondering what will happen next. It's not like... It's not like you're wondering. It's not like the outcome of the match. Rather, every little twist and turn with the match, you're like, "Oh shit! Oh, is he hurt? Oh, he's gonna lose. Oh no, what's happening here?" And it's just a ride. So, one example with The Rock, he had a match against Triple H and some other person, some WrestleMania or some kind of some kind of event, right? It was a pay-per-view event. And Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't show up. He was supposed to be his partner. So it's just The Rock versus Triple H and this other guy. And The Rock's just getting his ass kicked the whole time, but he's getting his ass kicked in like a very graceful way. Like, you're like, oh shit, he's doing so good. Oh, he's going to come back. Oh, and you're on the edge of your seat. Of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin comes, in the last second and, stunners everybody and they win. But it's like the way he was selling his, struggle and, almost being defeated and coming back and stuff. It was very like on the edge of your seat.
The Rock is electrifying.
But there's other matches with The Rock where I watched where it's just kind of boring because it's like, should he really be losing to this guy? Should this really be happening? And then you kind of don't believe it. You're just like, okay, it's kind of like with John Cena. John Cena, I think he's good like on a technical level. Like he can do moves. I guess people make fun of him because he only does like a couple moves out there, like punches and stuff. But he's not. You kind of know how it's gonna end. Like the whole thing is pretty obvious. You're not really like on the edge of your seat. They don't really sell a show.
So who else did you like?
So this is a dumb example here, but I really liked Rey Mysterio Jr. I never really saw him wrestle, but it's like back in the day. I used to really like Jeff Gordon. Never watched NASCAR.
Why did you like them? You just like their name?
I don't know.
You never watched Rey Mysterio actually wrestle.
I didn't have SmackDown.
I never saw him wrestle, but I liked him. He was one of my favorites.
I was just really into the idea of Rey Mysterio.
Oh, the idea. The idea of... Did you like Sin Cara?
Who's that?
He was a Lucha Libre wrestler who came over, and he was really popular, but he kept doing like really high risk moves and stuff that he wasn't supposed to do and kept getting hurt. And he was hurt like all the time.
Yeah. People
didn't want to wrestle with him because he botched moves all the time and would get people hurt.
Ooh. And I'm trying to think of anybody else. I mean, Scott Steiner was entertaining. But the main reasons The Undertaker is pretty cool, but I think he's kind of lame looking back. I think he's cooler when you kind of don't see him so much. Because his stick is kind of it's a little repetitive, a little lame. I think he's great when you're a child. I think he's great if you're kind of like watching things. But I don't know, he's a little too repetitive with his themes.
Is Scott Steiner Big Papa Pump?
Yeah.
The Freakzilla?
Yeah.
That guy, he has muscles on his muscles.
Yeah.
His biceps are weird.
Yeah. What's the actual science behind that? So look up Scott Steiner, and then just look up like him flexing like his arms, and you'll be like, that's weird. He has like a bicep on his bicep, and the actual reason behind that is bicep, bi two, so you have like two muscle heads, and his are just aligned in the way where usually when we flex we see just one, but his is actually placed a little more like upper on his arm. So when he flexes, you actually see both heads at the same time. It kind of looks like his bicep has a bicep. It's an illusion.
He's a genetic freak.
He really is, though. He's got lots and lots of steroids, but he has really good genetics. It's both. Kane was very intimidating. I don't know. There's some of these people, like The Undertaker is one of them, but also Kane, where they could have like a 3-minute ring entrance and it'd be okay. Like you're just on the edge of your seat like the whole time, like, oh my god, this is so cool. And whenever they tease those wrestlers too, like let's say something's happening and let's say Rey Mysterio, just random name out there, has a feud with Kane, and then Rey Mysterio messes up or something. He just won the match, and then the red lights come on, and they're like, what's happening? Is Kane coming out? And then nothing's happening, and people are just like on the edge of their seats. It might be 3 or 4 minutes of this, and eventually Kane comes out, and the whole crowd goes crazy, and it's like, what the fuck? He somehow sells that. It's a weird kind of thing, but
he's a very intimidating presence for sure.
He's fucking tall. Me and Steve went to a wrestling match or a wrestling event back in college, and we got like front row seats, and we saw Kane live, and he's like, fucker's like 7 feet tall, fucking huge.
He is a very large man for sure.
Like he's intimidating on the TV, but in person, you're like, I would never mess with this person. Like I wouldn't. I don't even want to say hi to him.
So it sounds like you know mostly like late 90s wrestlers.
Yeah, I gotta stop watching wrestling or paying attention to it when I don't want to say when I got older, but yeah, when I got older, it started not appealing as much to me because for me, what first intrigued me was the storylines and the characters, and then it kind of became about the wrestling. And then it became about the girls, because the girls were, Stacy Keibler, Trish Stratus, so good. But then it became about kind of the technical aspects and the kind of selling stuff, and not selling like merchandise, but selling moves and stuff, the acting and the things that are involved in that, kind of the behind the scenes stuff. And then I just kind of slowly moved away because I thought the storylines weren't very good.
I never liked the girls because back in the day, the wrestling between the girls, it wasn't about them wrestling. It was just about scantily clad girls falling all over each other, which isn't really my bag. I liked the actual technical aspect of the wrestling itself, seeing the cool moves, the innovative moves, and seeing the storyline. I didn't even care that much about, except for like the really ridiculous ones. Like Mark Henry as sexual chocolate when he had a relationship with Mae Young, who was like 70 years old, maybe older. And there were scenes of them like in bed together in a hotel, and like there was no, like they were doing it, like no questions. And then he got her pregnant at like 70 something years old. And then she gave birth live on television to a mannequin hand covered in goo. That's something you can't make up. Like, that's just so apt.
I remember this. Oh, wow,
he was an Olympian for the United States of America. Please keep that in fucking context.
Now, would Mark Henry be one of your top wrestlers, or are there others?
No, I wasn't a huge fan of Mark Henry. His persona was kind of cool, but it wasn't something like, he wasn't the type of wrestler that I like. I like the technical wrestlers like Kurt Angle, or I like Chris Benoit before he was. Obviously, I don't condone the way his life ended, but I liked him as a wrestler. He was an amazing wrestler. He was so good. I think one of the most underrated wrestlers is X-Pac, because at the time he was the light heavyweight champion, which is I think the cruiserweight now, or there's a whole bunch of different names for it. But nobody else was competing at his level, to the point where they dropped the division altogether because nobody could beat X-Pac. He was just too good, too innovative. He did these like crazy flying, jumping in the air kicks. He was just so good at the time. Maybe
I fall into this, but I never really cared for X-Pac. I thought he was just kind of some guy who, like a tag along, like for the whole D Generation X or whatever.
And that's how cruiserweights were. Like, this is coming off of the time back in the day. You couldn't be X-Pac's size. You couldn't be Rey Mysterio's size and compete in wrestling. It was a big man sport. But as that started to change and evolve, and the athleticism of wrestlers started to become a much bigger thing than the actual like brute force, it gave birth to the era where you could be a lighter wrestler and wrestle and be entertaining, and sometimes be the most entertaining, to the point where Rey Mysterio has won the world heavyweight title, which doesn't make any sense because he's not a heavyweight, but he was so good he was able to compete at that weight. But X-Pac was so ahead of his time as far as light heavyweight division goes, that he didn't have anybody to compete with, and it made him look bad.
Interesting. One parallel I can draw from what you're saying with X-Pac being so good, which I'll take your word for that, is innovating in that kind of way. Is there were other figures that innovated in other ways, like with let's say the hardcore kind of matches. So like Mick Foley is obviously one of the innovators with that, because I mean, what's that group, ECW? So they were kind of like the big proponents of that. But you had people in the WWF/WWE, like Jeff Hardy and the Dudley Brothers, and all those people who kind of really, like, that was kind of their thing, and that's what they really did well with. And ladder matches, oh my god, that stuff was so...
Christian and Edge as well.
Edge and Christian.
Edge and Christian.
So they really were into the kind of hardcore aspect, and they were really good at that kind of stuff. And then I guess these other people were more good with the athleticism. I think CM Punk was somebody who was more recent, who was really good with athleticism and kind of that kind of stuff, right?
His attitude is what drove him over the edge, because some wrestlers get by just on attitude alone and become huge stars. Like, there's no way that The Rock could have ever been a small-time star. Like, it's not possible. Even when he was Rocky Maivia and wore a fanny pack and a black turtleneck, like, he was an amazing athlete, and he was just fun to watch, electrifying, for sure. As far as hardcore goes, ECW really was one of the breeding grounds that allowed it to become more mainstream. I thought you used to watch ECW.
So I didn't. So I watched ECW when the WWE bought it and then brought it back on, and it was all right.
Rob Van Dam. He was an amazing athlete.
Oh, I'm trying to remember him.
He did the 5-star frog splash.
Yeah. He was in the WWF.
He was very unorthodox. Yeah, he came over there after ECW.
What's that guy's name as well? Tony or something?
Tommy Dreamer?
Tommy, like, he had like the stick. The kendo stick.
Yeah, Tommy Dreamer used a kendo stick sometimes. Sandman did.
Oh my!
They all really did.
And this is gonna be really offensive, but that Arab guy, his whole Sabu, that guy is fucking insane.
Sabu is crazy.
Oh my god! Like, he's like frightening to watch, but also really fun. I don't know.
Yeah, Sabu was intense for sure. Barbed wire matches where the ring ropes were replaced with barbed wire, and I mean, Mick Foley used to do that stuff all the time. Mick Foley used to wrestle with Terry Funk all the time in Japan and stuff like that. They would do barbed wire matches. They would do TNT matches where they put TNT under plywood in 4 corners of the ring, and if you hit the plywood at all, it would explode the TNT. And at one point, Mick, like, they had it planned, like, you hit square on the plywood and then the TNT gets absorbed by the plywood. But Mick hit at an angle, and his shoulder hit a corner or a side of the plywood, and when the TNT exploded, it reached out underneath and actually singed and burned his shoulder, to the point when he went back home, flew back home from Japan, his wife was like, was asking what that smell was, and he's like, it's me. Like, it's literally cooked flesh. He cooked himself because of these types of matches. And it just shows that, like, Mick Foley did not care. He would do anything to be an amazing wrestler.
That is so crazy. Oh my god, that is so crazy. Also, just a little side note. I think it's my grandmother. My grandmother is like super Christian and like blah blah. But she got me, I don't know why, Mick Foley's autobiography. She knew I was into wrestling. She was okay with that. And she saw Mick Foley, and she's like, "Oh yeah." She shouldn't have. I read like about a quarter of it, and I was like maybe 10 at the time, and I was like, "This is stuff I shouldn't be reading about." There's like so many sexcapades and like fucked up shit that happened in there. He starts talking about matches and how he lost a piece of his ear and so on and so forth. And he starts talking about like all these girls he was hooking up with, and I don't know, like. I was 10 at the time, so I might be misremembering it, but there's like too much shit in there where it's like, I can't be reading this anymore. This is not for me.
Yeah, Mick was real hardcore. He was the guy who, when they had the steel cage, and he was with the Undertaker, and the Undertaker threw him off the top of the steel cage, and he went through the announcer table. And that was like ridiculous that he would do that at all. Like, nobody else would ever conceive of doing that. It was originally a joke where they were like, well, what can we do? He's like, how about you throw me off? And then he thought about it. He's like, actually, I want you to throw me off the top of the thing. He did. He went through the table. They carried him away on a stretcher, and he made it halfway up the ramp, and he got off the stretcher and climbed back up to the top of the steel cage, continued the match. And then the top of the cage was held by like imagine twist ties made out of steel, and that's what was holding the cage onto the frame. And they were panels of like chain link fence, held to like a steel frame. And Undertaker did like a choke slam, and it was, or a move of some sort. I'm honestly not remembering, onto one of those panels. And what happened was not supposed to happen is all of those twist ties popped, and the actual cage itself swung open, and he fell all the way through down onto the mat below and flat on his back. And that was not planned at all. That was an actual accident. He punctured he punctured his lungs by breaking several ribs. He had a severe concussion, and he finished the match. The end of the match was Mick taking thousands of thumbtacks, metal thumbtacks, spraying them out across the mat, and then it's like one of those like double reversals or whatever, where he turns around and he's about to get chokeslammed, and then he reverses it, and it looks like he's going to DDT Undertaker into it, and then at the last second, Undertaker grabs his throat and chokeslams him onto the tacks while he has punctured lungs, internal bleeding, broken ribs, and a severe concussion. Now he's covered in tacks all over his back.
If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't watched wrestling, don't like wrestling, or whatever, watch this one match. This match, also, if you say, oh, wrestling's fake, it's so dumb, watch this one match. It is it's such a good match, but it's also a terrible match because it's so dangerous. Like, that's not a match that should be happening. But at the same time, it's super entertaining. Super fucking entertaining. It's crazy. And what these people put themselves through is just insane.
The TLC matches, back when it was the Hardys versus Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys, the tables, ladders, and chairs, and they were all so innovative with the use of them and how to hurt people with these objects that we all see and use mostly on a daily basis, tables and chairs. So I mean, like, the crazy moves that they do, flips and going through tables and hitting each other with chairs in crazy different ways. Like, there's TLC like 1, 2, and 3 are all amazing matches where they keep having to top themselves. The first one's crazy, and then the second one they have to top the first one, so they make it even crazier, and it just keeps getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Now, we focus a lot on Mick Foley. Would you have any other wrestlers that we'd say are your favorite, or?
I really like Triple H. I think as far as wrestlers go, he checkmated the whole wrestling world. Like, wrestling was his entire life. That's all he cares about is wrestling, and he was driven to the point where the most checkmate move you can make to make yourself the top of the wrestling world would be to marry the boss's daughter. Like, is there any other? There's nobody else who can top him now. And now he's like the owner, or he's going to be taking over at least when Vince decides he wants to step back. He's already brought in so many new things like NXT and a lot of the new Divas stuff. How much more of a checkmate can you have?
He's a very talented person, and he's definitely a good person to have run the company because he understands the ins and outs and also what makes for good storylines, what makes for good shows, and he knows what the wrestlers are going through, which is. Actually, you have any more wrestlers you want to talk about?
I really like Hardcore Holly. A lot of people like don't even remember who he was, Bob Holly, but he was an amazing technical wrestler, and he had great power, and he was great at like teaching new people like how to wrestle, bringing people in, being a recruiter and a trainer. But he was also just like a great wrestler. He didn't have the best gimmick. He was just Hardcore Holly. He was a badass from Alabama who didn't put up with bullshit. But I always thought that he was an underappreciated wrestler.
I remember liking him when I watched him. I'm just trying to actually remember him because he's kind of forgettable in that sense.
If you watch the match with Hardcore Holly versus Chris Benoit, I had to reach out to Bob Holly and ask him on Twitter, in the match versus Chris Benoit, did you guys actually hate each other and were actually hitting each other? Because I've watched so much old wrestling. I've probably watched from the late 80s to the early thousands, every single Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view, everything, at least twice. Mm-hmm. And so being able to tell like when someone's really hitting each other and when they're not, like sometimes people accidentally hit each other and you can tell when they actually do it. It looked so real. And his response was that they were a lot more stiff with each other. And that was just their styles. They like to, the easiest way to fake something is to not make it fake.
Yeah.
Like actually like don't pull your forearms when you go in and hit somebody. Actually give them a touch on it. Actually do some of the moves, because a lot of them aren't designed to actually hurt you anyway. So that match, if you want to see a match that looks like one of the most real matches I've ever seen, Hardcore Holly versus Chris Benoit.
So kind of disconnecting from specifics, let's get a little more general into what wrestling kind of really is. And people have said, and this is a claim that I was skeptical of at first, but that wrestling is kind of like modern mythology. It's kind of like modern kind of, some people compare it to Shakespeare and like kind of play acting with like really good theatrics. But it's also kind of like a mythology in a way, because you have these kind of titans with these kind of storylines and stuff, and like kind of Greek gods almost, and they're kind of interacting in these kind of huge and crazy ways. And I think there's a lot to that. I mean, I think it is kind of like theater. It's kind of like theater with like a high performance element, but it's also kind of like this mythological kind of aspect to it.
Mythological in like storylines?
Yeah, mythological in that, like, imagine that Zeus has an issue with Hades, and so he goes down to Hades and says, Hades, you're going down, bro, for what you did to my girlfriend here. I don't like it. And Hades is like, well, sucker, you gotta come at me right now. Let's do it. And so then they have a brawl. And I'm saying the scale and the mythology behind the characters is such that it's kind of like these larger-than-life kind of heroic, godlike figures kind of duking it out over their ethics, morality, their passion, their emotions, their past.
Was that your Booker T impression?
Can you dig it, sucker? I can't do it.
That reminds me of the greatest tag team of all time, Booker T and Goldust.
Oh, God, memories.
They were the most amazing tag team of all time because they were hilarious. Their skits they would do together were amazing. I really like Goldust myself. I think that he's an amazing wrestler because he's so unorthodox while still being technical at the same time. It's great. But anyway, I'll keep going on tangents, I'm sure. So, I mean, a lot of the storylines were really, really, really dumb.
But then again, a lot of the storylines in Greek mythology and mythology in general are pretty dumb.
Give me some examples.
So let's take more the Shakespearean aspect. So Romeo and Juliet. This girl loves a guy. They kind of fall in love, and then his parents say, "No, you can't be together," and then they kill themselves. It's kind of dumb.
Just like wrestling.
Yeah. Or let's say Hamlet. This king is like, blah blah blah, and then the queen's like, no, that's not Hamlet. But anyway, the queen's like, no, and then there's like some curse or something, and then they all kill each other.
I'm seeing a pattern.
And then what's the Taming of the Shrew? This girl's like, yeah, I'm a bitch, and people are like, oh shit, she's a handful, and so then they don't kill each other in this one.
Oh shit, she's a handful. Such a oh man, that is great. just like Shakespeare wrote it. Man, she's a handful. Oh boy.
But no, maybe a better analogy is kind of like modern kind of superhero movies and comics and stuff. But I think it's that way to a lesser extent. I don't think it's played up as much as being like a kind of this godlike figures. But I think there is kind of like a kind of undertones of that. I think there's undertones with that with like a lot of things, like a lot of TV shows and stuff.
I mean, it sounds like basic storytelling. Underdog stories, Titan stories where they're great and then eventually they fall, sometimes for a noble purpose. And then resurrection, people coming back after falling from grace and coming back into grace, classic babyface heel turns.
Yeah.
All of those things are pretty standard for storytelling in general. But the fact that they can tell a story, they tell these tales through words and acting and relationships and stuff like that. But the matches themselves are the stories that I always find the most interesting. Of like when, it almost seems formulaic for a lot of it, where one guy will start out losing and then he'll take over and he'll have the momentum and then the momentum will switch again, and then at the very end they're both really tired and really close to either could win on a single punch, and then a super move happens and it almost wins, and then another super move happens and then that one does win. Or maybe somebody interferes and that changes the tides one way or the other, or something along those lines. But I know a lot of the crazy storylines are the ones that I remember the most, like the one with Sexual Chocolate, or Moppy, the greatest love story ever told.
Was that Moppy and Head?
No, Head was different. Head was Al Snow's confidant, escort, whatever you want to call it.
Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, Al Snow would carry around a mannequin head, and he would talk to it, and he was crazy, and one time it got kidnapped, and like he was freaking out and stuff like that. But it was like his girlfriend almost. But the chant that they would always want to do is, "What does everybody want? Head. What does everybody need? Head."
I didn't. I feel so dumb because I didn't get that until I was like 20. Like, I didn't realize there's an innuendo going on there. Like, I thought people just wanted like this mannequin head.
Al Snow was pretty edgy in that way and really original. He was definitely a really important person in wrestling. Being the head of the job squad, because when you wanted to get one superstar to like really good high fame levels to become a Titan, they need to beat a whole bunch of people. But you can't start off beating other Titans, because then it makes the other Titans look really weak. So you have to have all of these people who choose to lose matches to try and build up other people's notoriety. So the Job Squad was a bunch of people like Stevie Richards, Al Snow, the Blue Meanie, who would all lose matches all the time because it helped build up other people. And they were basically saying, you guys are nothing without us. We're what make you great. And I thought that was just a really important movement.
It's kind of, I never really thought about that, because there's one aspect to it is to try and create this hierarchy, which is kind of a fictional hierarchy. It's kind of created hierarchy, but they have to give this hierarchy kind of legitimacy. So it's one of the issues I've had with wrestling in general, because you can ask the question, oh, who would win this match? This person, and sometimes the question is kind of nonsense. Of course, there's this other person, but then you look through like their wins and losses, and that wouldn't make any sense. How did Kurt Angle lose to this person when he's that great? But there's a lot of what they're trying to sell people on a lot of times is, whoever the world champion is that good. Like, no one else can beat them. And to sell that, they have to do a very good job of creating this kind of hierarchy of competence and skill. And maybe sometimes they can say this one person's not very good with this kind of thing, like these acrobatics and stuff. Like, you can deal with, more of a standard person, but someone like, say, I don't know, Rey Mysterio, who's kind of flipping around and stuff, he doesn't quite know what to deal with that. But
very similar to a boxing match or an MMA match, where you have, in MMA, you have maybe somebody who does Taekwondo and maybe somebody who's a boxer by original training, and they have to learn other ways and how to fight against other people. How does a boxer fight? How does somebody who only uses their hands fight against somebody who only uses their feet? And then the next week you have to go against somebody who grapples. Completely different fish, and you got to figure out how to fight that. And I think that falls under the same idea, that they can use these same ideas that do happen in real fighting and use them to their advantage in how these people interact.
There was two or three instances I can think of. Is a lot of times when smaller people have to face off against, say, the Big Show or Great Khali, I think it was.
Great Khali.
The Great Khali.
He was awful.
And who's that? He died though. But Kane. When people have to face off against those couple people, if they're a little person, they have to sell that they have some method, or they have to figure out some method of attacking. Because you can't sell this person just punching Kane or the Big Show and it actually working. It's got to be something like that, or they got to play dirty.
Usually taking out their base is a good bet. If they can't walk, they're pretty incapacitated. Get them down to your size.
Okay, aerial stuff. Like, I think one way they sold that with Rey Mysterio against, did he face off against Big Show? No, it was Great Khali.
I'm sure he's done both.
But they tried selling that by having him do these acrobatic stuff, which he could like kind of get up high and hit him in the face and stuff. Which it's kind of interesting.
For sure, a lot of Hurricane Ranas and stuff like that were originally like very Lucha Libre style. I know like Lita used to do Lita Ranas, which was just like Hurricane Rana, only she was doing it. But a lot of women started adapting it before men started adapting it, at least in WWF, WWE.
I was very naive as a child, or teenager. I don't know what I was, but I was very naive because Edge was dating Lita on the show, and they were gonna have this event at the for the finale of the show, and they're gonna have sex live in the ring. And the whole time I was watching this, I'm like, they can't do that. They can't show that. It's only rated like PG-14 or
whatever it was rated.
Yeah, whatever it's rated. And they can't do that. How are they gonna do? Oh God, they're gonna get shut down. What's going on? Like, I was like, I don't know why, but I was taking it so seriously. And my brain now is like, okay, they're gonna find some way to get out of it. Some person's gonna interrupt them. Something's gonna happen. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, they can't do this. What are they doing? And I was so dumb back then.
Edge actually was dating Lita.
I thought that in real life. Yeah, I thought so.
She was dating Matt Hardy and cheated on him with Edge.
In real life?
Yeah. And then Matt Hardy got fired for it because Matt Hardy was like blew up about it.
That's funny.
Well, it's fun, but it's whatever. And now I think Edge is married to Beth Phoenix.
So we actually know some people who are into wrestling.
We do. We know a lot of people. I know Brian Langell is actually an announcer for IHW, Innovative Hybrid Wrestling, a sponsor of this show.
And where does Chris Giddon fit into this?
He's an announcer as well.
And do they have a podcast?
They do. They have a couple of podcasts. Rockstar Chris Cole is co-host along with Brian Langell on WTF, What's the Finish, which is actually a pop culture podcast. Brian does 3-Player Co-op, TPC, which is what the TPC network, which we are now a part of, is actually was originally designed around. And then Chris also does the Rockstar Family podcast, where he does interviews with his kids, and his wife's on there. Mrs. Rockstar's on there sometimes, and it's actually really entertaining to listen to what the kids have to say and how they all interact as a family. It's charming for sure. Definitely something that I would suggest would be check out WTF, and if you like their personalities, if you like who they are, check out more of what they do. So just to lead us out here, Nate, tell me, name 5 female wrestlers.
Trish Stratus, Stacy Keibler, Lita. We got I forget her name. I know her name, Paige, and then there is China.
Oh, good one. She's dead too.
She was in porn, and she has a giant clit.
Wasn't she in one porno with X-Pac?
Was it with X-Pac?
It's called, Sean White? No, wait.
A Night in China?
Yeah, that's X-Pac. Yep.
Okay, I'm not gonna comment. I'm just gonna say it's funny, but it kind of is.
It's great. She was dating Triple H, and Triple H cheated on her with Stephanie McMahon.
There's a lot of cheating involved.
Yeah, I mean, life's a game. You can cheat, but where does it really get you? President of the company.
Okay, let's flip this on its head here. That's a good point. Good point. I like it.
What about head?
What do we want?
Head.
What do we need?
Head. I don't think that's how it goes.
So, to flip this on its
dome,
let's have you name 5 male wrestlers.
Takumi Chinoku, Funaki, William Regal, Finlay, and the Dragon. I'm sure that's a wrestler. I tried to go with all foreign wrestlers.
You're trying to show off your knowledge.
I just wanted to say Takumi Chinoku, because that's a fun one. How about the man they call Vader? We didn't even talk about how great announcers are and what they add to the whole mix. Oh man, we're gonna have to talk about wrestling again, but for now,
I think that we need to talk later at some point.
Sometime later.
Hey fans, we know you're on Twitter and you're on Facebook. You're on social media getting breaking news the minute it happens. Well, good news, so are we. Innovative Hybrid Wrestling has social media covered. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. We post everything you need to know about Innovative Hybrid Wrestling, so make sure you're following us so you're the first to get the inside scoop. This has been a TPC Network podcast. For more shows like this, go to tpcnetwork.com/podcasts.